Good morning and welcome to today's edition of Empowerment Hour here at Calon FM. How are you all doing with this splendid isolation, lockdown, whatever situation you're in, wherever you are, where you're listening to this? Because I know that these shows get listened to all around the world. So as I say, welcome to Empowerment Hour. I'm Denise Oliver. And I've had the wonderful experience this weekend of actually getting together with another family. Imagine that, actually leaving home, driving the car along the motorway. It was very quiet. I had such a lovely driving experience. I'm not looking forward to going back to roads at a chock-a-block with cars, because it was great to just whiz there, whiz back. Oof, felt like I was flying. And then we met up with a family that we have been friends with for years and years and years. We've watched each other's children grow up and be amazing adults now. And it was just lovely to see them in their space, have a glass of bubbly with them and eat beautiful food and just chew the cud on what is going on with the state of coronavirus and the world right now. It was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I have no idea when we'll be doing it again, but let's see what happens going forward. So who is my guest today? That's a little bit of a rambling about what I've been up to. Who is my guest today? Well, I've got the very lovely NathanSarea with me today. Nathan has been a guest on Empowerment Hour in the past, and I'm delighted that he's back with me today. So good morning to you. How are you
Good morning,
today?
Denise. Yes, good, thank you. Good.
How are you doing with all this splendid isolation and
it's
coronavirus and whatever?
It's been a very, very interesting journey for me. So for those of you who haven't met me before, I have a background in personal development and lots of different interesting things. But currently I am the chairman of the board for the United Kingdom Men's Sheds Association. That's the National Association for the Men's Sheds movement in the UK. I am a project director for Denby Men's Shed in North Wales. And currently, obviously, with what's happened with the COVID crisis, there's been a crisis amongst the sheds community, because everything has had to shut down, because we were all about combating social isolation and social inclusion and men's mental health and well-being, people's mental health and well-being. And so this has been a shock, because our own shed was basically forced to close down. We ran out of a health board premises, and we were told, shut before we shut you. Which was very hard to take, because you look at all the good that it's doing every week and people's lives you're saving, and it's almost like people have just been forced to walk away from projects they've spent years of their lives working on. So everything feels like it's on hold. It's very disorientating. For me personally, sheds was the thing that saved me. I have lived quite an isolated life. I live alone, have my own house, and so when it all sort of happened, I was plunged into immediate isolation, and in some ways it has been challenging. I've kept myself very busy, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. But initially I just had to switch off, because imagine everything that you've worked for, and not just at a personal level, but at a national level and an international level, with the connections of everyone that we share this movement with. It was just so challenging to think this could be the end of what we've worked so hard. And we know that what we'll get into later is just how effective these things are for men. There's very little that helps men. Men are the most vulnerable group when it comes to suicide. And I think that, this message out that needs to be put out, why this works. And so to see sheds taken away when they're so effective was crushing for me. And I really had to spend a few weeks of just stepping away from social media and the media, and just plow myself into doing physical activities, fixing stuff, just because I needed to get my head straight.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of guys that out there, a lot like you as well, wondering what on earth they're going to do with their time. And
because we're not great. We're not great at dealing with change. We're very much we are solutions focused people, and I think a lot of that's what drives guys, and so we keep trying to cope and keep trying to cope and keep trying to get a solution and keep trying to get a solution, and that happens, we solve that happens, we react, we solve this. There's so much programming in the male minds, and I think that's where a lot of the stress builds up, and of course it's difficult to back down from that.
It really is. I know that you have done a lot of work on yourself. You are a therapist in many ways. You've done all sorts of things. And one of the theme that we're actually going to keep rolling through this show is men and their mental health, and what awareness we can bring to that. And I know this is a massive thing for you, and that's where the Men in Sheds movement has been such a passion for you. So we're going to take a break now, and we're going to come back and talk way more about men and their mental health. Hi there, welcome back. This is Empowerment Hour. I'm Denise Oliver, and my guest today is NathanSarea. Nathan, just give us a little bit of background into Men in Sheds. What is it, in case someone's never heard of it before, and how did you get involved with it?
Sure. Well, the movement itself, I mean, Men's Sheds, or at one time it was called Men in Sheds, but it's mostly referred to as the Men's Sheds movement, or Men's Sheds. And they are really, as they sound, it is meant to be a place, a space where men or people can gather. We call it Men's Sheds, but there's a lot of sheds out there. We have female members, we're very inclusive. So, the modern movement has changed. In its original days in Australia, it was very much over 50s or over 55. A lot of countries have stuck to that model rigidly, but really, if you look at the demographic and what's really going on with men's mental health, you need to open the sheds to younger men, because they're the ones that are dying and struggling more and more. The loneliness factor is massive in the older demographic, but it's also there in the younger demographic. So the movement itself, it's really a place for people to come together, and like they say, men don't talk. We are crap at that generally, and so this was a space where people would say, men don't talk face to face, but they will talk shoulder to shoulder, and that was the sort of ethos of it. Men will talk face to face when they feel they're in a safe space. Or if you throw something like a broken motorbike or a broken piece of machinery in the middle of it and say, lads, this need, if you put these 20 men in a room and basically said, okay, guys, talk about your feelings and how life is for you. I'll come back in an hour and come back with some feedback. You'll probably walk into the room and half of them will have left, and the rest will be stood there looking at the feet or talking about football or something. But if you throw something in the midst, a complex challenge of, if you walk in and say, I just cannot get this, drill press to work, they'll be like, wow, I'll show you how it works. And you'll probably find that within an hour or two, conversations will have started to happen. So it's almost like we need this third space to be available for us to actually communicate, because, and a lot of pressure builds up for men. A lot of pressure builds up for men, which people don't really understand, unless you are a guy, and all the guys out there will probably be listening to this going, oh, that's me. We are, because we have an issue with pride, and this is not being negative, I'm just saying, a sense of honor, a sense of self, a sense of pride in yourself. Men, we really don't want to let go of that facade and appear weak and vulnerable, because we've grown up with, and I challenge anybody to correct me on this, because when we grow up through school, we kind of learn, it's a bit like the law of the jungle. As a man, as a boy, you show weakness, you get beaten, you get bullied. And bullying is rife out there, and it's something which we really need to address in our society, because it's just disgraceful. It starts so young, starts on social media. There's so much pressure to be perfect, and I think that's grown over the years, and so we've ended up with damaged generations of people that now have a real challenge to their sense of self, but for a lot of us, we've worked hard, we aspire to something, jobs, houses, careers, and then a lot of people have got to that point where that's, and particularly now, that's being challenged. So who do you become? How do you adapt? And I think when men run out of options in their minds, this is when this suicidal ideation begins to creep in. And it's terrible when you're a man, you're stuck with nothing to do, and no purpose and no mission in life. That is crushing. And that it's, even from my employability days, we would look at this and go, the model that worked was somebody would get unemployed, lose their job, and once they finished all the jobs around the house and painting things, if they had one, by 6 months, if they hadn't found another direction to move in with another job, they would sink into a depression plateau that would last at that level until something gave. And so it's exactly the same pattern that we're seeing. The nice thing about the sheds is that people can go, and it was all about having a space to make things, create things, but really it's about, you know, the kettle and the conversation, in all honesty. And we talk to guys all across the world, and it's lovely because we can be complete strangers, and as soon as you start having this conversation, all the people that really get it. And so this is where we're looking at, what is this magic X factor in the shed? Why are they so effective? I mean, when you're talking about figures like being 89% effective at treating depression, 75% effective at treating anxiety, who's got figures like that around men? Because I tell you, you know, you might, even if you go along to your GP, like I've done, and present, you know, a mental health condition that you'd like some help with and some support with, you may be waiting months, more than a year, before you can actually get some help. And then, as we see, the help that's really on offer through the statutory services, it may not be the thing that really helps you.
Yeah.
So we either need to help men to help themselves, or we need to come up with better solutions.
Yeah, it's really cool. Men, like you say, they are the fixers. They are the ones that like to take the problem and give you the solution, whether it's what you've asked for or not. It's part of that programming, isn't it? I also, we're going to take a break. I'd just love to sort of have that discussion with you about women are being more challenging about their role in society. And I'm just wondering whether this is having an impact on men's mental health as well, in that they don't quite know where they fit in anymore. So what, you know, women seem to be stronger, more empowered, but where does that leave the guys? Because the women are now solving the problems. And it's like, but what happens to me in this situation? So let's take a break and we'll come back and we can have a little bit of a chat around that. Hi there, welcome back. This is Empowerment Hour. I'm Denise Oliver. My guest is NathanSarea. We're talking about men in sheds, mental health awareness around men. And I was mentioning to Nathan about women and women wanting to be more assertive, wanting to be more of them, and where this might leave guys with that, like, well, if you're going to do all of that problem solving, where does that leave me? Had an interesting discussion with the family that we visited, and we both have daughters of the same age. They're both 27. They're very strong women. They won't be told what to do. But then there's that point where they're in their lives where they're aware of their biological clock, and their biological clock's ticking, and it's only the women who can have the babies right now. And they're aware that with their friends who have started to have children, that the guys have suddenly lost themselves in the relationship and they don't know what to do. They're having this whole like trauma go on for them as to, oh my God, I can't cope. I can't go to work, do all the hours I do, be the only person earning the money. And it's almost like they still need the woman to step up, but who looks after the child? You know, there's this conflict within men right now as to what do I do? And you were saying that the sheds were started for guys over 55, so the more retirement end of things. But what about these younger guys who just don't seem to know where they fit? You know, and it's just such a, and the girls didn't have a response for that. They didn't know what there isn't like a clear answer to this, but society has changed. And guys, I think, have somehow lost something in all of this. They don't quite know where they fit.
I think it's you're touching on a couple of really fantastic subjects. It's, you know, for me, I've pushed, because the shed, when I joined Denby, and it took me 6 months to get through the door of my own project. And I always say this to people because, you know, sitting here as chair of the National Association and quite a public figure in the world of sheds, people assume that, you know, this is about personal glory. Well, it's not about personal glory or gain, because it certainly isn't that, but it is about trying to get the message across of, I am exemplary of how sheds have worked, being a lonely, isolated professional, then was made redundant, then really struggled. I was so depressed and suicidal. You know, every week it was just, I've lost my way. Who am I? Where do I fit? You know, I was late 40s, and so I wasn't anyone's dad. I wasn't anyone's toy boy anymore. You know, and I wasn't physically as strong as I was. And so my body began to change. My life began to change. And when you feel like a spare part as a man, well, if you have no use in the world, and there was no one around me to reflect my qualities and abilities, so I was in such a bad place, and it did take me 6 months to get through the door, even though friends were pushing me to do it. So when I did, and obviously there was a job going, and then it all just kind of took off. But that was early 2015, and look at where I've gone to. And so it's enabled me to be exemplary of why these things work for people, because you need a purpose. And it's you're touching on so many fantastic subjects there, Denise. I think a lot of it has come down to the social decay that we're experiencing, and as a society, family units breaking up. There's more single parent families than ever before, and this has been noticed, particularly in America. They've done quite a lot of studies of just how, and other countries, this is almost like a phenomenon in all of the first world nations, that the breakdown of the family unit and dads disappearing off the scene, or not being able to be on the scene because the women are becoming more empowered, or stepping up into a more kind of having to be masculine and feminine in their own nature.
Yeah.
There's so much, and honestly, the cases from both sides, it's never ending of what we see. But the impact on young boys in particular is that they struggle, and you see a rise in all of these mental health conditions and disorders, and then of course this link into, you know, failing in education, failing in life, failing in the world in general as they get older, and then being involved in crime. So the statistics of this are out there for everyone to see. It's because the younger men can't get access to older men who are suitable role models. And also, it's found they don't respond to female teachers. There's more of a challenge, and they're butting up against female teachers in the schools. It's not working for them, but it's working for the girls. And so more girls are coming out with a more defined sense of self. I say there's still a lot of challenges there because of the way the media manipulates people all the time, but women have come out with a much stronger sense of self. And it's often, it's people's wives and partners or daughters who make the guys go to the sheds. You know, it was my friend. She made me go to the shed and pushed this for me. So we often find that's the route that people are coming to it from. It's from the women actually trying to help them.
Cool. It is fascinating. It's very complex. There is no clear route through this. And I'm a woman who likes a shed. I could quite happily have a shed of my own. My husband has recently built himself a shed at the end of the garden. It's had several names, and we laugh about this. It's the Shed Cabin Hut Shack Studio, where he goes and spends time being himself and doing his art, and just enjoying being at the end of the garden and watching the nature and things like that. It brings a calm and an ease to him that he might not find anywhere else. So sheds are amazing. If you haven't got space for a shed of your own, we're going to take a break now, but we'll come back and we'll find out more about how you can find a shed near you, because lockdown is being lifted. We are going to be able to get out and about more. We are going to be able to meet up again. And I think it would be a good idea for guys to know where they can go. So we'll take a break now and we'll be back shortly. Hi there, welcome back. This is Empowerment Hour. It's all about the guys today. We're looking at mental health awareness with men, and how, by knowing about men in sheds, or what are you calling it now? Men's sheds?
Men's sheds. Men's sheds.
And there's something I do want you to mention as well, is that you're doing this online
Shedfest, yes,
Shedfest,
for the first time.
And meet the Shedis and all of this. So we really do need to bring this in. So if guys aren't comfortable in finding anything right away, there is ways online where they can look this up first and meet you virtually and other guys that are doing this around the world. So men and their mental health, it's a massive issue, but it's not that well known. I personally don't think. I don't think people recognize just how high the suicide rate is with men. So guys, if you're listening to this, or girls, if you're listening to this and you know someone that needs to know about this, please, for goodness sake, put them onto NathanSarea, Men in Sheds, Shed Men. I've forgotten already. Men's Sheds. Nathan, tell us how can they research this? How can they find out more about this?
Okay, yeah, so there's a couple of things really. First of all, if obviously with lockdown is easing, so at the moment with the social distancing rules, sheds are having to look at how many people they can accommodate. What I've always pushed for is for younger men to be allowed to be involved in sheds, and also, you can be a professional and still working and need a shed. It's a psychological need. Of men have basically six. Now I've worked with this for years. Men have only really six basic needs. There's three primary ones and three secondary ones. The three primary ones sort of ease off, I suppose, as you get older and your testosterone levels drop. But the three secondary ones are really that we need a cave, we need a shed, and that's it. And we also need, a lot of us, we need to run with the pack, which is to be around, the group of guys. And the third of the sort of secondary needs is this issue around, pat me on the head and tell me I'm the best. I nearly wrote the book, The Girl's Pocket Guide to Boy Pets, but then life moved on and I didn't get the chance to do that. And I no longer consider myself to be a boy pet. I'm a wise older man now. Not really. But yeah, first and foremost, if you want to find a shed, go to the UK Men's Shed website, which is www.menssheds, so that's MENSSHEDS, menssheds.org.uk. On there, you'll find a shed map of all the sheds. We are the fastest growing country with sheds at the moment. We are probably, I think we are now at 600 sheds in the United Kingdom. The growth is massive. It's the fastest moving thing for men's well-being in the country at present, and probably the most effective thing. However, the sheds are all probably mostly run by volunteers. And so if you have skills and you have things to bring along, please do, because you'd be surprised at how much fun this is. And any other guys, you can go on and watch the videos. Shedfest is coming up next week. There will be a lot of online courses, information available, and some social events to be able to attend. We found that in lockdown, Zoom has been a great tool for us. And so what we've started doing is keeping in contact with different sheds around the country and around the world. So myself and a friend called Dan Gamai, who's a guy that set up Westbury Shed down south, we've come up with Sheds Sans Frontières, which is a Facebook platform for us to. I wanted to do a podcast or something just to get the word out there about this topic, because it's really not being spoken about. It's a silent epidemic and it's killing millions of people. The impact is huge of any male suicide. It's catastrophic. So, I'm not saying that sheds are the cure for this. What I'm saying is men have certain needs, and if you can reach them upstream far enough and just say it's okay, that what you're thinking about, what you're ruminating over, that is not the solution, because you could change direction with just the right input, and a couple of months from now you won't even understand why you thought about doing those things to yourself. So it's very important, guys. I can't stress it enough. Save your lives. You're all good people out there. And that's what I want to make sure is that we're getting across this message. So if you can get onto the shed map on the main website, so that's www.menssheds.org.uk, and then go onto the shed map, or look on the news sections, look on the articles and see what we're all about. You can join me on Sheds Sans Frontières. I've been doing a series of videos called Meet the Shedi, which is where I interview people that are behind the scenes of the movement in different countries and different parts of the UK. So there's a good bit, you get a good feel. It's authentic banter, it's real chat about real issues. And this is what we need to bring to the fore, is that there is this desperate need for men to be more better understood. The statistics are horrendous, and what you're seeing is that these statistics are only based on the reported suicides, as in the ones that have had a coroner's verdict of suicide. Now, they're going to attribute a lot to accidental death, and a lot of people reckon that it's being underreported, and this has even been said in America that it's being underreported by about 3 to 1. So the true numbers of men that are taking their lives, it's awful. And so for me, I can't rest while that's still continuing. So this is why I do what I do. In part is to help move that on.
Yeah, it's an amazing movement, and I'm so glad that you're so willing to come and talk about it and do so much with the movement as well, with everything that you're creating. And just to say that your particular shed is the Denbigh one in North Wales.
Yes, that's
And
right.
so there is that one there, and it's great that it's growing. So there is such a need for this, for guys to have this this place that they know they can be themselves.
Yeah, they need their man cave, and they
Yeah,
need that time and space with other guys where they can be affirmed in the kind of pack, if you like. It's an essential psychological need, and once you can get that address, you'll find people will thrive. They'll go from being in a bad space to thriving.
yeah, that's great. And yeah, you can have a cup of tea and a chat if nothing else. So
Absolutely.
it's a great movement. We're going to take a break. There's still more to chat about with this, and I don't know about you, Nathan, but we could chat forever. So let's take a break now. Hi there, welcome back. This is Empowerment Hour. I'm Denise Oliver. We're talking about men, their mental health, and the importance of becoming more aware of this. And my guest, NathanSarea, is talking about one particular way that guys can come together and actually get to a point where they feel like they're not struggling, that there is possibility out there, that there is the capacity to thrive and not just feel overwhelmed and overburdened. So Nathan, we talked about so much here with the men's sheds movement, and just to say again, if you want to find out if there's one near you, www.menssheds.org.uk is where you can go to look for this. If someone was interested in setting up one of these, A, what does it look like? B, what do they have to do? Who do they have to contact? If there's nothing in their area and yet they know that this would be something that would really assist guys in their area, what do they do? How do they go about it?
Well, one of the best things to do, Denise, in honesty, is to get in touch with us through the website, is to make yourself known to us. Have a look at what's out there online in terms of videos and what people are talking about, because I think it's important for people to get a flavour. It is something which, obviously, things have changed drastically now, because what we're looking at is a shed as a physical space, but also, really, you could think about having it as a virtual space. And in light of the present climate and the way things have been moving, it has opened our eyes to the fact that sheds could be virtual sheds. And that's why we're running Shedfest this year. Is that Shedfest, I invented or created Shedfest and hosted the first one in 2015, World Mental Health Day 2015 at the Denbigh Shed, because we had the premises to do so. And we brought together the initial first 6 sheds that were there in North Wales at the time in 2015. Loads of third sector partners, support organisations, everybody that we could basically muster into it. And it was fantastic because we had over 250 people. Big marquee, we had a screen, we showed films, people got up and spoke about their experiences. It was very much a celebration of the guys. People networked, they shared. Beautiful. So this year, obviously, we were going to be we now host it normally in the University of Worcester Arena. And it's now the national signature event of the United Kingdom Men's Sheds movement. So obviously we couldn't hold it this year. We were trying to hold out for it, and it just, obviously, when we saw the way things were going, so we've had to move it this year into a virtual event. So my team at the UKMSA have been working very hard behind the scenes to try and get together a virtual event. So if you go onto the website and just type in Shedfest 2020, you'll see that there is an online event, and there'll be links posted there which you can access throughout the week. So it's going to be run from Tuesday the 7th of July, that's next Tuesday, from 10 o'clock in the morning right through till 10 till 3 is the main sort of core times. We're using StreamYard as a platform to live stream into Facebook and into YouTube workshops, and you'll see people talking about what sheds are. And there's quite a few really interesting topics that we're going through. Then we're going to have some social spaces using Zoom in the afternoon after the main event finishes. And then there's some evening sessions as well. So it's a great time to be involved in it. Just get in, have a look at what we're doing on Sheds Sans Frontières, because There's just so many great guys and so many great women out there making this happen. So the starting a shed is a relatively straightforward process. You just have to decide you're going to do it and take a deep breath. And then you'll find it's probably one of the hardest things you've ever done, because it requires an immense amount of work and dedication and actual knowledge and skill, because most of us end up setting up as small charities or charitable incorporated organizations. You need a constitution, you need something which guides you, but really it's all about the guys. So you just need to bring a group of blokes together, have a cup of tea, and then let them all tell you how their version of what you're going to do is better. But it's the setup startup phase of a shed. A lot of people struggle for premises, but let me tell you, there's a lovely thing, because of our connections at the sort of UK at the National Association level. Network Rail, we're starting to develop some amazing partnerships out there, and it's growing all the time. But Network Rail came to us with the idea of, we've got all these empty premises that are doing nothing, all these rail premises up and down the country. And so in the East Midlands, they've got 30 premises available. And you think, wow, what for like peppercorn rents, they're going to do them up in theory and then let shed groups potentially run out of them. It's a massive thing. It's a lovely initiative if it takes off and we can make it happen. But it just goes to show that people will offer premises. Having a workshop is important, but at the same time, because some guys just want to come there and have a man cave experience and make some stuff. Others just, it is their social contact. It's their one place in the week they get to have a friendly chat. So as long as you can have the kettle and the conversation, you've got a good start, and take it from there.
It just sounds great. Tell you what it reminds me of, women who get together for red tent experiences.
Yeah.
So, it's the same sort of thing. So they come together on a new moon or a full moon, and basically they can just chat through without judgment what is up in their world. And
Yep.
It's a similar experience.
It is.
Had their conversations are just a bit more touchy-feely than a guy's conversation. But we all still do need to have these conversations and connection with other people. It's so important.
No, it is. No, it's hugely important. If you watch a group of men interacting when they first come together, like I said, there's this issue about having the third space. So if they haven't actually physically got a space, what you'll find is that men will interact, and they will start exchanging stories. And so a lot of the way that men, and I never noticed this before until I observed a group of our ambassadors all coming together for the first time. And I thought, that's beautiful, because we are gaining rapport with each other by telling funny stories or telling interesting stories. And so I thought, I'd never noticed that about men before, but it's a really real phenomenon. They will communicate in metaphor and storytelling to get to know each other first of all. So it gives them a third space in which to do it.
That's so cool. Thanks for all of this. We're going to take another break now for some more music, and then we'll be back for the final session. I mean, it just goes so quickly. It's amazing. Thank you so much for being with us, Nathan. I really do appreciate it. Hi there, welcome back. So this is the final session of Empowerment Hour today. My guest, NathanSarea. We've been talking about men's sheds. So just wrap all this up for us. Men, mental health awareness, and what men's sheds, what the aim of all of this is, bringing it all together.
Yeah, so really, I think the thing about sheds is we're not there primarily to help men's mental health. It's the thing is, we understand it's almost like health by stealth, it can be called, where the effect just happens. And so this is the shed factor. And it's so powerful and so effective. Anybody in the statutory services that you take the figures to and show them, they cannot understand, because they can't touch those kind of statistics with anything that they're doing for people. So what we look at is, what is this thing then? Because people might understand, and even if you're very, very switched on as a therapist or a psychologist, or, you may actually get an insight and say, well, I can understand how this might happen. What they can't understand is the speed and the rapidity and the astonishing change that can happen in men very quickly. Well, all you're doing is you're hitting the right psychological markers for that person's being. And it's, men have distinct markers that they need. They need their boxes ticked in that way. And sheds just seems to be the thing. And it's like there's the ideal way, there'll be no pressure in a shed. You come and do as much or as little as you want, interact on whatever level you want with the other people there. And all it does is just makes you feel human, Denise. You know, that thing that people used to have, we all used to feel normal and okay. And then, you know, the modern life comes along and just goes, ah, and kind of traumatizes everybody. So, yeah, this is something that we got speaking about, which was the men's mental health is such a challenge because by and large, we won't speak about it. Or if you do speak about it, where's the real effective help? So from my therapeutic background, and I've gone through, like I was saying to you earlier, gone through a really interesting journey about understanding my own complex PTSD, which has stemmed from childhood. And over the years, you know, I've been really high functioning, cope well. And then there's times when it really hits me. And I have these, which I've understood now from a great book, which is by a guy called Pete Walker. And the title of this book, which has been the most revelatory thing I've read in years, it's available on Amazon, Complex PTSD, From Surviving to Thriving. So that's Pete Walker is the author, Complex PTSD, From Surviving to Thriving. Complex PTSD, unlike your sort of standardized, as we would think, which the PTSD, which most people associate with, is either post-combatant or, you know, trauma from working in one of the service organizations, or a traumatic life event, can even be from a car crash. But when these experiences are accumulative, and particularly when things have stemmed from childhood, everything stems from childhood. When you start looking at the everything, it's fantastic. Just look at, just go, well, why is this person an addict? Look at that. Well, did they have a traumatic childhood? Yep, there you go. Now, it may be that it was just that person was had parents that couldn't express love, or they were just abandoned on many levels. That in itself creates this rift inside people's psyche. And this is what we're now beginning to look at as complex PTSD. So it can happen from an accumulation of life's experiences, and then you get a massive buildup of emotion. So how are we? We're not trained or educated to cope with life's knocks. And those knocks are, put it this way, you know, my dad's been married 3 times. He's on his 3rd marriage. He's survived it all. He's still got, you know, his sort of houses and resources and wealth. Now I look at it and think, I couldn't, in my demographic, I couldn't survive 1 divorce. I don't know how I'd bounce back from that. So how did he do it 3 times? And just go, oh, got, you know, got another job, got another house, got another missus. Yeah, it's all good. And but it's that mentality of like, wow, how did you do that? Because I couldn't see me surviving 1 catastrophic event like that. So you have to hand it to him, all credit to him, you know. But I think there's a difference that the circumstances we're in now, everything is so much tighter. It's going to be very hard for most guys to survive something like that. You know, the breakup of the family unit, or a devastating mental health episode could leave them permanently scarred, and you'll never get back on the property ladder, for example. Or so it's hard. You have to really readdress your sense of identity and sense of self. And for me, this journey through understanding my complex PTSD and how I react to certain situations when my buttons are pushed, and it's been an absolute revelation, because I'm beginning to understand my own inner mind states, and the ones that do push me when I'm having an emotional flashback, it will be trying to make me end my life or harm myself. And it's done it in the past, but as a grown man, nearly 50. It is quite a challenge when you have those things going on in your mind, and it's so powerful. It overrides all of your rational defenses. It's incredible.
Yeah, there's so much more we could say, and we have run out of time for today. My goodness. So anyone who wants to know more about Men's Sheds, please www.menssheds.org.uk, where you can look up the UK Men's Sheds. Is that right, on that website?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. And Nathan has Shedfest coming up. Oh, actually, by the time the radio show goes out, you might have already done it. But you're doing this series of
Meet the Shedi.
Meet the Shedi and Sheds on Frontier. So just look at Men's Sheds, and you will, there will be a breadcrumb trail for you to follow somewhere.
If you go on Facebook, the UK Men's Shed group is also on Facebook. If you look at UK Men's Shed Association on Facebook, or UK Men's Sheds, there's loads. There's Irish Men's Sheds. There's all over the place. But for us, the Sheds on Frontier, have a look at that. Have a look at the interviews with some of the people that are involved in it behind the scenes, which is under the Meet the Shedi shows. that's just something that I've been doing for myself to keep the momentum going for the movement, really, just trying to do my bit while we're on lockdown. So
Thank you. Yeah, that's amazing. You have done an amazing thing with this, because I've spoken to you in the past about it all. Thank you so very much for being with me today on Empowerment Hour. I'm Denise Oliver. My guest was NathanSarea, and I'll be back next week. Stay tuned to Calon FM. There's loads more coming up just for you. Thanks
thanks,
very,
Denise.
very
Thank
much.
you.